Hello everyone, good afternoon, EagleX here, and I have some pretty big news that Bandai's had for us. They announced that for the Digimon Fest events, which are going to be in Arlington, Texas and Miami, Florida, that they're going to be implementing two big new rules to try to change the game, listen to some of our concerns and things that people have been saying about the game. The first thing they're going to be looking at, and I want to tell you some of my thoughts as we go along, and I have some things pulled up that I think will be very interesting to some of you. The first thing they're going to have, though, is a mulligan. For you guys who don't know, mulligan is a way of saying we're going to be swapping cards out in our starting hand to have something more desirable. So typically for your traditional decks, it's going to be like more rookies, and then it's 4 and 5 and 6, hopefully. But how they're going to implement this is they're going to start by having us set up the entire game first. So we have our security set up, we have our hand drawn, and then looking at your hand, you can choose to put those 5 cards at the bottom of your deck per the second bullet point. You don't shuffle your deck, you don't replace the security, and then you'll draw your 5 new cards from the top of your deck. And that's all, there's no extra mulligan after that. But this will help enable decks that are OTK or combo-oriented decks. So decks like Jesmon and Pepsi Bond will thrive a bit more in this mulligan allowed format. So that's some quick thoughts I have on that. Because it's going to be implemented in DigiFest, I expect to see more Jesmon because of it. And then the next thing, which I think is a bigger deal, honestly, is the side decks. You'll bring your main deck of 50 cards and a side deck of up to 10 cards. Side decks may include the main deck cards and Digi-8 cards. And that's actually going to be something I show off here, why Digi-8 cards actually can make a big difference. But same thing, you have limitations in cards to your normal deck, so you can only have 4 of EX1 Gabumon, and you can't have extra copies in your side deck. The contents of the side deck are secret. They're not shown to the opponent. And both players should count out their side decks in view of their opponent to confirm how many cards are in there at the start of each match. Your side deck may return to a deck box for safekeeping, which is on the table in view of both players. Then at the end of each game in a match, you can choose to swap out cards into your main deck from the side deck. The same number must be swapped between each deck, so you still have 50 card decks. They ask you to do it in a timely manner. If not, you can be penalized. And if a player has a side deck, they should present to their opponent face down. The number of cards in the side deck is public information. The number of cards, not the cards themselves. Then when you make a swap, you only have to tell your opponent how many cards were swapped, not which ones were. And you cannot review your side deck contents during a game. And if your match, so which that means before you go into your next set with a new player, you have to swap your deck back to the original state. So side decks is something that a lot of people are excited for, and it comes with lots of good reasoning. This will allow you to be prepared for more decks and allow your main deck to be more consistent but prepared for bad matchups or to give you counterplay into certain decks. So first here I have cards that I believe would be very common to be in a side deck. First one is being your memory blockers with Chumon, Madoki Betamon, Terriermon, and Gazimon. Next thing is your reducing cost cards, so Siakumon, Gazimon, and Cutemon. So that'll stop the level 5 hybrids for Digivolving for 1 if they have a tamer in their source. So it could slow them down, and I can see this being side decked real commonly. Mechanorimon, that can be side decked and splashed in lots of different decks to counter hybrids swinging for game with multiple of them. You just block each hybrid as you go along. Decks that have easily swapped out top end, like Diaboromon. Green for different control scenarios. Yellow to text a Kuyamon against Jesmon even, because that's what the card's mainly used for. Other things that can be side decked are similar versions of the same removal. So if you guys remember in the Gabumon days, people ran Absolute Blast, Rattlestar, and Kikaitis Breath, and it depends on the matchup for which one you really want. If you know you're playing against something where you need your Omni removal more than anything, Kikaitis Breath can show up from the side deck. If you realize you're playing against Rookie Rush, Rattlestar might be more relevant and show up. An Absolute Blast for other scenarios. Cards that are situational, like Delicate Plan, it could be a great card in some matchups, but completely dead in other matchups. Will probably show up in the side deck more than anything. You won't main deck this card anymore unless you just don't like a certain matchup. Certain decks could be teching in All Delete now. So in the last format, in BT6EX1, All Delete was teching to Security Control for some matchups. And that's something that I think would be very relevant in some matchups, but very bad in others. Emergency Program Shutdown could be teched into more decks, so if you have a white tamer already, it's easy to throw in this card as a tech. Some people, when they play Jesmon, they tech in Emergency Program Shutdown to stop board removal against Security Control, or from Security Control. Other little techs I thought were cool: Purge Shine for Diaboromon matchup, it can be splashed into Yellow Hybrid. Holy Flame is something you can tech in to your deck if you're playing Yellow Hybrid for the security effect. It's not something I expect to see, but just something that I thought of when I was making this video's contents. But these are like common techs I would expect to see. Now, what does this look like? So right here, I have a traditional purple-based yellow hybrid deck with Shine Greymon, Dynasmon for your control. You have Susanomon, nothing super crazy. But like, maybe you're going into a set against like maybe Jesmon, and this is what you have. Jesmon, they Delicate Plan, they OTK you, they have their Wombo Combo. And you're like, okay guys, I'm ready to change up my deck. I'm going into my side deck. I'm going to be swapping out 10 cards. This is hypothetical. It's not what's going to happen every time. But maybe you realize Shine Greymon's not doing much as they're hiding and raising super frequently. You realize that you'd rather have some other things. Well, a 10 card difference can be quite a bit. Obviously, more options won't help against like a Jesmon per se, but you tech in 3 Sakuyamons, you change your 1 egg base, and you can run red options now. Just one thought to keep in mind as you build these decks and as you think what can be in your side deck. This was only changed out by 10 cards. 3 Sakuya over Shine Greys in the purple option. You have your red egg for red options. But like, it can just make a very different show for what your deck is the idea. Next thing that can happen, you guys remember Gabu Bonds from last set? We have our 55 card deck here. Well, what happens if I told you with only a 7 card change, you become Pepsi Bond? And this isn't like obviously the most optimal build right away. It's just something for me to convey the idea. A 10 card side deck is very substantial, and you can be very well prepared. Like, Gabu Bond struggles against security-oriented decks. Well, now you can easily make it a Pepsi Bond deck and counterplay. Is this healthy for the game? I think it's healthy to an extent. I think this is great for some decks so they don't have an auto-loss matchup. But I'm very curious to see how this will shape up DigiFest in Arlington and Miami. I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are. Go ahead and drop it in the comments if you think a Mulligan and side deck are good for the game. And if you enjoy this content, please like, comment, subscribe. With that being said, take care, y'all.